Hearty congratulations, ISRO Chairman Somnath ji, and the spirit of the whole country is really roused up because of the textbook style launch which we have attained today in Sriharikota. What next, sir? Today's launch was a very successful launch. You have attained the intended orbit and all the goals have been reached. What next from today onwards?
From today onwards, the Chandrayaan-3 craft has to find its way to moon. So that is done in very, very different ways than others that have done. We have perfected this approach of moving from Earth to moon in a different manner than that done by others. This process we started doing in Chandrayaan-1. First, place the satellite or the Chandrayaan in an elliptical orbit around Sun, which is almost equivalent to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. Then slowly raise its orbit, the farthest point called the apogee, towards moon, the likely point of moon. So this is done. This will be done in the next coming days. So we will raise the apogee, also perigee a little bit, so as not to re-enter the Earth. Then this is done extremely by good calculations are done. And after this is raised, then finally we call a trans-lunar injection will take place, and that is currently scheduled on 1st of August. And with that, it will start its journey towards moon. It will take about 4-5 days. And once the Chandrayaan-3 travels towards the moon direction, moon also will reach there. So we calculate both reaching there at the same time. So finally it will be grabbed by the gravity of moon, but we have to reduce the speed a little bit by firing the engines on the Chandrayaan-3. Then it will be captured as an orbital body around moon in an elliptical orbit. Then there also we do calibration, measurement, etc. And finally that orbit will be reduced to 100 by 100 kilometer circular orbit. And that will be happening towards the end of August. And after that we do calibration, measurement, etc. and check everything, including its propulsion system. Then finally on the designated day of where we can land on the designated landing site, that is possibly on 23rd of August, we do the retardation or the reduction of the velocity to reduce from 100 kilometer to 30 kilometer and further to touchdown. So this is a continuous process that will happen in the next 40 days plus. And we are hoping that everything will go well.
Surely, all our wishes, 1.3 billion people's wishes are with you because they are always proud of ISRO's continuous achievements. And the interesting set of experiments you have incorporated in the lander as well as the rover. So please tell us something about those experiments and the payloads.
See, we have put certain instruments in Chandrayaan-2, lander and rover, and those same instruments are again rebuilt and put in these two elements of lander and rover. They are the same. So essentially the scientific goals are the same. So once we achieve soft landing, we can exercise those instruments in a very controlled manner in the next 15 days of the lunar daytime. So we have instruments on the lander which is specifically designed to look at the lower atmosphere characteristic of electrical behavior of the small atmosphere. We also have instrument that will be dropped on the surface of the moon, which will measure the quake characteristic or the internal characteristic like vibration, etc. on the surface of the moon. Then we have a retroreflector which is placed precisely on the surface of the moon and on the lander to measure the distance, which is a NASA supplied retroreflector. Then the rover will come out after a certain assessment. Then rover's solar panel will be deployed. It will come down on the surface of the moon and move around the moon and then do two important scientific experiments to look at the structure of the elemental structure of the moon surface by doing a laser ablation and spectroscopic measurement of the elemental composition of the surface, and also an alpha particle and X-ray induced fluorescence, and then measuring the elemental properties of the surface. So these are the two important measurements that will be done using the rover. And the rover will explore and take pictures, cameras are all provided. And this data will be transmitted to the ground through the Chandrayaan-2 orbiter, and our science team will make sense out of the data.
So Chandrayaan-2 orbiter is still in orbit. Is it alive and kicking?
Yeah, Chandrayaan-2 orbiter is still working, and it is continue to provide still the data. It has a very high resolution imager, which is helping us to do the landing properly this time.
The landing site has been having some significance. That's what ISRO scientists whom I have spoken to told us. Please tell us more about the landing site that is being planned.
See, we have to select a landing site where there is a guaranteed illumination of sun, because there are ups and downs and valleys, etc. there. So we cannot take a valley where the illumination will not be there even during daytime because of shadow, because sun won't raise it too high to give non-shadow conditions there. And we have also selected a sufficiently flatter area. There is no flat area really. There are boulders and recessions there. So we have selected a place where this is reasonably higher level of flatlands where the landing would be better. And we wanted to do it more closer to the South Pole. So this is the criteria for selection.
Earlier, even human landing was near the equator. Now the race is really hearting up towards the South Pole. Now, even if it's not exactly South Pole, somewhere closer to South Pole, there must be some significance, Chairman, sir.
That all of us understand that equator has illumination, sun illumination, and it is better to be there because any day we can land because of the illumination possibility. Whereas when you go southward, the illumination comes down and power generation becomes an issue, landing orientation becomes an issue. So it is more riskier to go to South Pole. But the scientific interest is more in the South Pole, primarily because the sun is taking away all the water, if at all is there. And we know that if sun illumination is not there, some of the permanently shadowed zones will have some additional information that could find out. So there is a scientific interest. Many nations are targeting to go to southern directions and explore that.
Because we are an early starter, one of the early starters, we will have some that advantage. You yourself told us that we have studied the functionality of the Chandrayaan-2 during its descent phase on the lunar surface. Based on the experiences, we have made several modifications. What are these?
On the Chandrayaan-2 basis, we have done a lot of modification on the Chandrayaan-3. They are essentially in strengthening the algorithm of handling dispersions, variation in the initial conditions of landing. So we have added, strengthened the leg, strengthened the propulsion system by two engine based landing. We have added more fuel, we added more battery power, we added more solar cells to create power, we added new sensors to measure velocities, etc. So, and also the algorithms and failure handling capabilities. So this is essentially the set of changes in the lander.
You said 85% of the components and other structural parts have been supplied by the private industry. So there is a robust private industry dealing with space science?
Currently, what I talked about is the rocket building. The rockets are currently built by mostly the Indian source of materials, except some high-end electronics products. Rest are all sourced from Indian companies, and that is material sourcing, but manufacturing also takes place in Indian companies. And they are also doing assembly and testing and supplying many items. But the only final value addition of final integration and testing is done only by ISRO people today. And they also designed the mission, the software and the testing process, etc. So what I mentioned is that 85% of the value of the rocket is actually made in India.
So keeping in the spirit of entrepreneurship, which needs to be open for even private sector as per the policy of the Government of India led by Honorable Prime Minister. So now you are creating, ISRO is helping even the startups, and an enabling environment is being created by ISRO. So please tell us about those startups, that ecosystem in space industry.
No, there are two things. Startups, which are innovators, they do things differently, and we are looking at with excitement towards them. They may bring about a plastic thinking and new energy into the whole system. So startups in space sector has to be promoted, and a lot of them are coming, and we are helping with whatever way we can help them in terms of hand-holding them, promoting them, helping them to do with the costly investment that we have already done in ISRO. ISRO should be supporting them. So this is one part of the part, and we are also wanting to have big players who are helping us in manufacturing to scale up their skills to next level. Like those who are working with the rockets and satellites building, they should scale up their next level of skills, like integrating them, building their own satellites, building their own rockets in large numbers. This is also another step. So whatever we are doing regularly in terms of rocket building, satellite building, we want to transfer to industry, which we have already done. PSL is already transferred. We have already transferred technology of small satellites to them. And we have also started a company-owned operation within the premises of ISRO for them to understand the technology and do it in a commercially viable manner. So we hope that they will become suppliers of future global players in space, both satellite building and launch vehicle building. And we want to create the industrial base here, who can engineer them, build them, or provide solutions in a global manner. It is not only for rocket and satellites. We are also hoping that services from space sector in application services, building equipments and supplying, building ground-based equipments. So the biggest commercial interests are in terms of service providing. So we have to focus on that side as well. So there are different types of industry working in rockets, satellites, applications and delivery. So everywhere there are startups as well as big companies trying to find out the potential markets and enter into them. And startups are specifically very interesting because they are the young entrepreneurs trying to find new solutions to the existing problems. So we have much more hope in them.
So after Mangalyaan, now the scientific experiment, there were several spectroscopy experiments as well. Now we are moving towards the moon. Then what next, sir?
No, moon has not been completed yet. We have to go to moon, explore moon, understand moon, land on moon. Possibly you may find something very interesting in the future which may trigger further exploration of moon. And there is a global interest on moon itself. So moon being a very close object, it can become a potential base for our future exploration, like going to Mars and going to exosolar planets, etc. in the future. And everybody is moving there. And India needs to have its own foothold in the whole of this mess of moon-based economy which is coming up. So that's very interesting. And we already have explored Mars. And maybe potentially we may look at Mars. We may also look at Venus, which is a very interesting planet. But its scientific interests are identified. But commercial and continued exploration need to be identified in the future.
There is a big lineup of missions like Gaganyaan. Will there be any future mission, manned mission in our pipeline?
Yeah, manned mission is already announced. That's called Gaganyaan. Gaganyaan is only for placing an Indian in the orbit around Earth and bringing him back safely to demonstrate the technology part. Of course, the scientific content of manned mission is well understood. And going there has so much of benefit of the future innovation and technology development. For example, material processing, electronics, medicine synthesis, human organ making, new algorithms development, space, continued space travel, etc. This capability is needed, and India cannot lag behind that. So what we have thought about this part is that let us have the capability first. The utility of that capability into large-scale exploration will emerge in over a period of time when everywhere globally this becomes a point. That's what we are looking at.
And now, what about several missions that you are planning to launch infrastructure-based missions like communication satellites and remote sensing satellites?
No, those things continue because they are continuing in a different mode today. They are going to be a demand-based manufacturing and supply. And we are also having new companies and industries coming to build these satellites, communication satellites and remote sensing satellites. So we are taking help from them to build it for wherever it is required for nation. But if it is required for commercial exploitation, it will come in the commercial mode. For example, communication has become already in the commercial domain. So we have transferred all our communication satellite to NSIL, the New Space Intellimeter, which will operate them commercially. If future communication satellites are required, it will not be done in the similar mode. It will be done by NSIL through its own funding. Similarly, Earth observation satellites also will be built for various users like governmental institutions or private users based on their demand. We are ready to build and launch and develop new technology for it.
One final question, sir. Actually, PSLV has earned the goodwill of the global space community. Now LVM-3 is also becoming such a reliable, highly popular launch vehicle on its segment.
It's already is, because without that confidence, nobody would have come for launch. Recently, you would have seen the launch of OneWeb satellites. 72 satellites were launched. It was so critical for OneWeb to launch those 72, and they came to LVM-3, looking at its high reliability number and the confidence that they have on the rocket. Even with a major change in the rocket, they were ready to fly on board. And we did those missions successfully for those two launches. And we have enough of demand for LVM-3 to be launched on commercial scale.
One final question about a small satellite launch vehicle that's in the nation stage. Please tell us about the future developments.
SSLV is not in the nascent stage. It is already developed. We had a successful launch, and we are already going to have next development flight. And large number of demand is already been projected, and we are getting ready to have them. But the most important thing is we have announced that this satellite launch vehicle will be transferred to industry. and technology transfer announcement has already been issued by InSpace, and we are hoping some industry will take and learn the technology of building this rocket from us and innovate on it and build it in a commercial scale and launch very frequently.
On a very hectic day like this, you have been kind enough to give us, allocate your time and share your thoughts with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
முன்னதாக ஸ்ரீஹரிகோட்டாவில் உள்ள சதீஷ் தவன் விண்வெளி மையத்தின் 2வது ஏவுதளத்திலிருந்து கடந்த 14ஆம் தேதி சரியாக மாலை மணி 2:37க்கு புறப்பட்ட சந்திரயான் 3 விண்கலத்தை தாங்கிய LVM-3 செயற்கைக்கோள் செலுத்து வாகனம் திட்டமிட்டபடி புறப்பட்ட 16 நிமிடங்களுக்கு உள்ளதாகவே டெக்ஸ்ட் புக் ஸ்டைல் எனப்படுகின்ற மிகவும் துல்லியமான பாதையில் நிலைநிறுத்தியது. இதனை அங்குள்ள அறிவியலாளர்கள் கொண்டாடி மகிழ்ந்தனர். இதனை காண வரலாறு காணாத அளவிற்கு 5000த்திற்கும் மேற்பட்ட பொதுமக்கள் பார்வையாளர் கேலரியில் கூடியிருந்தனர். கடும் வெயிலையும் பொருட்படுத்தாமல் அங்கு கூடியிருந்த அவர்கள் தேசபக்தி கோஷங்கள் முழக்க தங்கள் மகிழ்ச்சியை வெளிப்படுத்தினார்கள். பின்னர் மிஷன் கண்ட்ரோல் மையத்தில் பேசிய இஸ்ரோ தலைவர் திரு சோம்நாத் அறிவியலாளர்களின் இந்த சாதனையை பாராட்டி மகிழ்ந்தார். அறிவியல் தொழில்நுட்பத்துறை இணை அமைச்சர் டாக்டர் ஜிதேந்திர சிங்கும் தனது மகிழ்ச்சியை வெளிப்படுத்தி இது இஸ்ரோவை நிறுவிய டாக்டர் விக்ரம் சாராபாயின் கனவு மெய்ப்படும் நாளாக இது திகழ்கிறது என்று கூறி தன்னுடைய மகிழ்ச்சியை வெளிப்படுத்தினார். பின்னர் செய்தியாளர்களிடம் பேசிய இருவரும் சந்திரயான் 3 பயணம் குறித்த பல்வேறு தகவல்களை செய்தியாளர்களுடன் பகிர்ந்து கொண்டனர்.
Powered descent and landing is currently planned on 23rd August at 5:47 Indian Standard Time evening. So that is a current, everything goes normal from today to landing, that is the schedule. Concerns are that we have to slowly raise it to the moon-bound orbit. That will happen in next four burns, which are scheduled. Then, as you know, it has to capture the moon. If it doesn't capture, moon mission is not there. So our calculation, I hope it will all be all right and it will be captured on moon. Then it will be an elliptical orbit. Then it has to be a 100-kilometer circular orbit. That's another 3-4 maneuvers. Then on the designated day, it has to reduce from 100 kilometer to 30 kilometer and then land on the moon.
It's a moment of glory for all of us. It's a moment of glory for India. And I think a moment of destiny for all of us, that we are part of the history in making. And I must thank Team ISRO for making India proud. And also thank Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji for making this possible.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The CBPO stands for Capacity Building and Public Outreach. Now space missions, one side the science missions are there, which are definitely part of research and research of ISRO and space domain. But other parties, we have to utilize the space applications, space technology to different applications. Who are the ultimate users? This is the public, general public. Be it mobile for communication purpose, be it general user for navigation purpose, like whatever you are moving in a vehicle to reach out to a place, that shows the way, that is navigation, and earth observation. So many applications are there, which you talk about urban development, rural development, water resource management, forestry, agriculture, weather forecasting, pollution, water pollution, air pollution. So these are all areas where we can do a lot of improvements using the space technology. But the question is, who are the users? Whether the users have got sufficient knowledge on these applications, how to use the space technology. This is where the outreach comes into picture. The second thing is the students who are the future, let's say, scientists or future of India or the country. They should know what the technologies leverage them to improve their social life. So this outreach basically envisages creating an awareness of all these space technology applications, not only to make them aware how the technologies will be used for different social applications, but also the career development.
ah से सजा भारत अनोखा राग है।
सौरागिनियों से सजा भारत अनोखा राग है। ये प्यार का संगीत है,
ये शांति का गीत है, ये एकता का राग है।
भारत अनोखा राग
सौरागिनियों से सजा भारत अनोखा राग है, अनोखा राग है। भारत के इस एक तारे पे गूंजी है जो जो रागिनी, सब मिल गई एक धुन बनी।
इस धुन में गाना एक है, इस धुन का एक है।
ये राग सबका राग है, भारत अनोखा राग है। इस देश की रीत एक है, धड़कन एक ताल में।
सुर अनगिनत गीत एक है, ये देश सबका देश
சிறுதானிய வகைகளை பிரபலப்படுத்தும் வகையில் 2023ஆம் ஆண்டை சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய ஆண்டாக ஐநா அறிவித்துள்ளது. இது தொடர்பாக ஐநா பொதுச்சபையில் இந்தியா, பங்களாதேஷ், நேபாளம், நைஜீரியா, ரஷ்யா மற்றும் செனகல் ஆகிய நாடுகள் கொண்டு வந்த தீர்மானத்தை 70க்கும் மேற்பட்ட நாடுகள் ஆதரித்தன. இதன் மூலம் சிறுதானிய உணவுகளில் கிடைக்கும் ஆரோக்கிய பலன்கள், பருவநிலை மாற்றத்திற்கு ஏற்ப பயிரிடும் முறைகள் ஆகியவை குறித்த விழிப்புணர்வு ஏற்படும். இந்த நடவடிக்கைக்கு பிரதமர் திரு நரேந்திர மோடி பாராட்டு தெரிவித்துள்ளார். சிறுதானிய வகைகளை பிரபலப்படுத்துவதில் இந்தியா முன்னணியில் இருப்பதாக அவர் கூறியுள்ளார். அதன் நுகர்வு ஊட்டச்சத்து, உணவு பாதுகாப்பு மற்றும் விவசாயிகளின் நலனை மேலும் மேம்படுத்துகிறது என்றும் அவர் கூறியுள்ளார். ஐநாவில் 2023 சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய ஆண்டு அறிவிப்பு தீர்மானத்தை ஆதரித்த நாடுகளுக்கு பிரதமர் நரேந்திர மோடி நன்றி தெரிவித்துக் கொண்டுள்ளார். சிறுதானியங்களில் சோளம், ராகி, வரகு, சாமை, குதிரைவாலி ஆகியன அடங்கும். ராஜஸ்தான், உத்தரப்பிரதேசம் மற்றும் ஹரியானா ஆகிய 3 மாநிலங்கள் மொத்த சிறுதானிய உற்பத்தியில் 81% அதிகமான பங்கை கொண்டுள்ளன. இந்தியாவின் மொத்த திணை உற்பத்தியில் ராஜஸ்தான் மாநிலம் முக்கிய பங்கு வகிக்கிறது. 2020ஆம் ஆண்டில் நாட்டின் மொத்த ஏற்றுமதி உற்பத்தியில் இந்தியாவின் பங்கு 41% உள்ளது. இந்தியா ஆண்டுதோறும் சுமார் 12 மில்லியன் மெட்ரிக் டன் திணைகளை உற்பத்தி செய்கிறது என்று வேளாண் அமைச்சகத்தின் செய்திக்குறிப்பு தெரிவிக்கிறது. இந்தியாவில் மட்டுமன்றி உலகின் பிற பகுதிகளிலும் வாழ்வாதாரத்தை உருவாக்கவும், விவசாயிகளின் வருமானத்தை அதிகரிக்கவும், உணவு மற்றும் ஊட்டச்சத்து பாதுகாப்பை உறுதி செய்யவும் சிறுதானிய உற்பத்தி பெரும் பங்காற்றுகிறது. சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய ஆண்டு கொண்டாட்டம் இந்திய சிறுதானிய வகைகளுக்கு உலகளாவிய அங்கீகாரத்தை வழங்கி இருப்பதாக பிரதமர் திரு நரேந்திர மோடி கூறியுள்ளார். சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய மாநாட்டை ஒட்டிய கருத்தரங்கை தொடங்கி வைத்து பேசிய அவர், உலக நாடுகள் இணைந்து சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய ஆண்டை கொண்டாடுவது இந்திய சிறுதானிய வணிகர்களுக்கு உலக நாடுகள் வழங்கியுள்ள அங்கீகாரமாக தாம் கருதுவதாக குறிப்பிட்டுள்ளார். நாட்டில் இந்திய வேளாண் ஆராய்ச்சி கவுன்சிலின் கீழ் செயல்படும் சிறுதானிய ஆராய்ச்சி மையங்கள் உலகத்தரம் வாய்ந்த ஆய்வு மையங்கள் பட்டியலில் உள்ளது என்றும் அவர் குறிப்பிட்டுள்ளார். சர்வதேச சிறுதானிய ஆண்டு உணவையோ வேளாண்மையையோ குறிப்பது அல்ல என்றும், நாட்டின் வளர்ச்சிக்கு சிறுதானிய வகைகளின் உற்பத்தியின் பங்களிப்பையும் குறிக்கிறது என்றும் அவர் குறிப்பிட்டார்.